This is Shane Coughlin. I'm just beginning to share my screen. You should be able to see the antitrust policy notice on the shared screen. Is that working okay?
Yes.
Perfect.
Yes, it's okay.
Excellent. Okay, let's wait another 2 minutes to allow people to join, and then we will begin. All right, let's begin. So the antitrust policy notice has been shown for a couple of minutes, as usual. Now we'll move on to the main body of the call. We start with a roll call, we move on to project update, we have a look at some of the new reference material, then we talk about our workgroup meetings, and finally we cover the ISO draft of the specification. Let's do the roll call first. On the line, I see Alvin, Fukuchi-san, Russ, Imada-san, and Ninjoji-san.
Good morning.
Good morning. There is also a notice that SC Lin is joining the call. If I missed anyone, let me know. Okay, welcome SC. So we have Alvin, Fukuchi-san, Russ, Imada-san, Inoji-san, and SC on the line. Let me give you a quick project update. A lot has been happening, so I chose a few of the key highlights. We have just announced our first conformant bank about a week ago, Yoma Bank in Myanmar. This is an interesting one. Yoma Bank is an ethical bank, one of the largest in the country, and it is a bank that has built out an open source department, including by hiring people involved in Debian and Ubuntu. They approached us about conformance, and they're new to our community, but they obviously are very keen on doing open source compliance correctly. It's very nice to welcome our first bank. It shows that our community is expanding in new directions, and hopefully we'll welcome a few more in the next couple of months. The next news item is about Japan and Switzerland, and more generally about growth in the OpenChain support community. Until recently, our only partner in Japan was TÜV-SÜD, the German certifier. This meant that it was difficult for companies in Japan to get things like legal advice around OpenChain. We've just welcomed a Japanese law firm to our partner community, and a second law firm is currently scheduled for announcement next month. We're very happy that we're building out this support structure in each area. OpenChain actually has a goal of trying to allow freedom of choice for 3 different service providers in each geography. In other words, we'd like there to be 3 law firms to choose from in each country. And this target is being met around the world. piece by piece. We welcomed our first Swiss law firm as well. This is an interesting one. The Swiss law firm also has lawyers who practice in America, and they do a lot of quite high-profile deals. This means they are making our international connection stronger at the same time as opening up our support in Switzerland. Even though Switzerland is a small country, this is important because they have a huge technology sector. Now, we've had continued community releases of various documentation. These community releases that I'm about to mention are not inside the OpenChain reference material. They are licensed under, for example, non-CC0 terms. But the material is out there and it may be useful. I wanted to highlight two things: an OpenChain cheat sheet from a company in Germany. This is designed to give a quick overview of OpenChain in one slide. And the 5th edition of the German book Legal Framework for Open Source Software contains a lot of reference to OpenChain in the compliance chapter. As you'll notice, both of these are German, and that's because our community growth in Germany is very active. Germany is similar to Japan. We're seeing a lot more people engaging, a lot more companies engaging. It's particularly exciting to be included in the book Legal Framework for Open Source Software. This is the 5th edition of the book, and this is the go-to book in Germany for open source law. It is written by Till Jaeger and Axel Meitzer. It's a book that has been around, I think, now for about 15 years or so. All right, next topic, Open Source Reference Tooling Group, the OpenChain Reference Tooling Group in 2020. We just released, a few hours ago, more slides about the Reference Tooling Group, and this can help people understand the mission of the tooling group and easily begin to participate in it. I think these slides are important because almost every company in the OpenChain ecosystem is talking about automation and how to do that. The Reference Tooling Group is focused on open source tooling for open source compliance, and they're also working on the information around interoperability so that when people have a hybrid environment with open source tooling and proprietary tooling, it's clear how to make things interoperate. That's it for the project update. So basically we have a lot going on and quite different things, ranging from new entities to become conformant, to reference material releases, to growing partner engagement, and to activities from our work groups evolving to solve problems that people mention. You can keep up to date on all of the activity of the project under the news section of our website. Just pause here in case anyone has any questions or comments. Okay, next section. The reference material section of our GitHub repository has been completely reorganized. 46 repositories have been brought together into 12. The reason is to make it easier to find material and to structure our repository from first principles for translation. In other words, our repository is no longer English and then some translations, but rather designed that every language is equally featured, and it's easy to see what translations are available of each document. The most important thing that changed is that our onboarding and curriculum repositories were consolidated into one repository, Reference Materials. I'm just going to open that on GitHub. Reference Materials contains a lot of different folders of material: case studies, checklists, FAQs, flowcharts, guides, Kanban workflows, policy templates, supplier leaflet, training slide, and worksheets. By way of example, I'll just click on guides. We have community and official guides. The community guides are material under CC0, contributed to the project, that are not part of our official releases. And of course, the official guides are official releases. Let's have a look at the community guides. Right, so we have assessment of open source practices in mergers and acquisitions. That's actually a whole book by Ibrahim Haddad. Company onboarding processes. Key benefits of adoption by department, for example, procurement. Onboarding slides to show how you can bring people into OpenChain project, into compliance activity. Recommended activities for compliance teams, recommended engineering practices, reusing software guide, tooling overview. So a lot of material there. Let's go back to guides. Official. Under official, you'll find things like the introductions to OpenChain and OpenChain for managers. Over time, hopefully we will graduate more community material into official material. Okay, so all of the material is under OpenChain project reference material. The old repositories are not gone. They were not deleted, they were archived. So they're accessible, but they're read-only. And the idea is that all of the new activity will happen under the reference materials repository, so that we have a single source for our community contribution. In the last week, we've had 2 new releases in reference materials. One is metrics for open source scanning tools, and the other is draft worksheets. Both of these actually come from Ibrahim Haddad again. We've been taking sections of one of his books with his permission and releasing these parts under CC0 to allow our community to have quick access guides. Let's look at the metrics for open source scanning tools. So in this particular thing, they're under our checklists in the repo. And I'll just pull up the PDF version. The metrics for open source scanning tool is essentially a list of items, checklist items, that you can consider for scanning tools. Size of knowledge base, frequency of updates, ability to support snippets, vulnerability discovery, and so on. This information is intended to help support people in considering scanning tools. This list is not complete. We've actually sent the list to our main mailing list and our tooling group mailing list, asking for people to consider each of these points, to consider what's missing or what might be removed. But we do have the basic metrics to evaluate source scanning tools available now, so people can get started. The second item, draft worksheets. This is an interesting one. So the worksheets cover a lot. I hope you can see this on the screen, but they basically cover things like how do you adapt your business processes? How do you do tooling support? How do you do community contributions? Compliance process management, compliance staffing, discovery of open source software, obligation satisfaction, and so on. Let's take a quick look at this material. Huge amount of worksheets, huge amount of worksheets. We'll pick up one of them here, arbitrarily. I'm going to choose community contributions. So it's a very simple checklist where you have the practice. For example, I'll pick one in the middle. The practice, copyright ownership of the planned contribution is clarified. So it's clear who owns the copyright. You can choose implementation options like complete, partial, not available, or not applicable, and you can add a note. So these are really practical worksheets that you can edit in something like a PDF application, or you can print out, depending on how your company works. All of the worksheets, I'm going back into the list, have the same format and are very easy to use. I'll just click Discovery of Open Source Software. Again, a series of simple practices, implementation choices, and notes or action items. So very clearly, these worksheets are specifically designed to help teams get stuff done. It's quite exciting to have so many worksheets. I believe we've got 13. On the repository, these are marked as beta release 1. And the reason for that is not because the worksheets are incomplete, but rather because in this raw format, here's obligation satisfaction. In this raw format, they're not, for instance, OpenChain branded yet. Once they're OpenChain branded, and once we've had a little bit of community feedback, they'll move to final release. Okay, I'm just going to pause here and see if we have any questions or comments. All right. So if you go to OpenChain project/reference material, you'll find everything from the project. It's over 400 documents. It's a huge corpus. And our newest stuff, metrics for open source scanning tools and draft worksheets, have links here. Your help in reviewing the metrics and the draft worksheets is deeply appreciated. Moving on, workgroup meetings. And here's where perhaps some of our dial-ins from Taiwan and Japan can help with some comments and notes. The first point, the OpenChain Korea workgroup is having a virtual meeting, its Q1 meeting, on the 19th of March. We've also had a couple of virtual meetings in the previous weeks. For example, the China workgroup held their first virtual meeting for Q1 about 3 weeks ago. And our Japan planning subgroup held a meeting, I think, about 2 weeks ago. Virtual, of course. The question is, and this is to you, do we hold China, Japan, Korea, Taiwan, India, and Germany virtual workgroup meetings in Q2? My opinion is we should. We should keep the community connected and we should keep momentum. But I would like to hear from our colleagues in Japan and in Taiwan about their opinion about whether we can hold remote workgroup meetings.
Yeah, this is Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
All right. So in Taiwan, we are planning to have the face-to-face meeting at the first time because we can get people close and build up the relationship. So yeah, currently we hope our first meeting is in person.
Okay, so I didn't hear the last word. The first meeting is when? SC, I just wanted to check, when is the first meeting face-to-face?
We are still in discussion.
Okay, understood. And appreciated. That's a great point. Taiwan is very new, so face-to-face is important. All right, so that leaves China, Japan, Korea, India, and Germany. So just asking my Japanese colleagues, do you think we can hold a virtual meeting in Q2?
先生
Hmm.
This is Fukuchi.
Hi, Fukuchi.
You already said that we had a planning subgroup meeting in virtual way, a remote way, and so we will continue the subgroup meeting in remote way, and but the all member meeting we discussed in a subgroup meeting, and regarding the all member meeting, we should keep face to face style, because we had already many people together, about 50, 60, 70. So I think we cannot together such a large people in a remote meeting. And also uh, we want to build a trust in a face-to-face meeting for all member meeting. So we will continue the subgroup meeting, small meeting. We can held a remote meeting, but the large meeting we want to have a face-to-face meeting.
That makes sense. Understood. So the short version there is that Taiwan and Japan will hold main meetings face-to-face when the time is right, because in each country, each culture, it's important for the socialization and important to have the full attendance. Is that correct?
Yes.
Understood. And that makes a lot of
Yes.
sense.
Even though we will have the conference discussion with Lucien and Florence.
Right. That makes sense. And I will talk with our Chinese work group members and see what they think. We had the first Chinese work group virtually a couple of weeks ago, and for some people it worked okay. For some people it was hard. In China, at least, we had some issues with connection, and people kept dropping out of the conference call. This was not because people had bad internet connections, but it was because perhaps there were some aspects of the conference tool that didn't work in China. So I need to talk with them about if they'll have another remote meeting or wait until physical meeting. Korea is different to Japan. It's a much smaller work group, which I guess is one reason they're holding the virtual meeting this week. I will talk with our friends in India and Germany about remote meetings. I suspect Germany will be fine with a remote meeting. It's a very common format in Germany. I don't know about India. Now, Russ is on the line, and I had a question for Russ about his opinion. We want to have an OpenChain USA work group, and the OpenChain US work group was meant to start last week at the Linux Foundation Members Summit, but the summit was canceled. And so I wanted to talk about whether we can do a remote start in Q2. Russ, do you have any thoughts on that?
Sure, Shane. That's. It's entirely possible. It might be worth getting our finger on the pulse, just given the current global situation. Most companies now have closed the offices, and people are expected to work remotely. So I don't know what that does to every individual's demands. Personal versus work life, and how that may impact any interest to hold a remote meeting. I'm certainly happy to help facilitate or to help in any way I can, but I think it might be worth maybe reaching out and seeing what the thoughts are for the people that are interested.
A great point. A great point. Okay, Russ, I'll do outreach and see what our feedback is, and yeah, well, we'll take it forward. There's no doubt that right now we've been hit hard, and when I say we, I mean every company in the world by this situation. It's a lot worse than we thought it would get. By way of example, the stock market erased all of the gains since the beginning of 2019 in the last week and a half. So, trillions of dollars have been wiped off. Valuations. The first 2 months of the Chinese economy, it's worse than we thought. There's no doubt we're heading into a global recession. So not only are we stuck at home, we're in a situation where a lot of the companies will be extremely stressed for revenue and cash flow in Q2, Q3, maybe even Q4. So, Russ, good point that we should talk through with people what their bandwidth is. Worst case scenario, people might be able to put less time into OpenChain for a few months. That's not a killer for us. We have built our specification, we have a great amount of reference material, and we can and will finish our ISO process. So even if people are a little busy for a couple of months, it does not impact our strategic goals. It just slows down our community outreach and engagement a little, and we'll catch up later in the year. Thank you, everyone. Great feedback. Okay, the last item today is the ISO draft. I know I keep bringing this up, and the reason is pretty simple. This is going to be the standard for 5 to 10 years. So it's important we're all able to see the material, that we're all on the same page, and that we can all easily communicate it to others. So at the moment, on the website, you can find the current specification and so on. And I'll be updating the website to be much more ISO focused in the next couple of weeks. But meanwhile, all of the draft specification material can be found on our wiki. That will be valid for a few weeks as an active site, and then forever as an archive site. I'll just open this up a little bit. So on the wiki, and I realize this is going to be very small on your screens, so I'm zooming in. All right. On the wiki, there's a specification page where Mark Giese, the person in charge of our specification work team, has placed the current spec, all the previous versions, and the current draft version, along with rules for contribution and the development process. Digging into the draft, this is our ISO submission draft. This document is unchanged since December, so you'll see that it talks about finalizing December 15th. It was finalized. We haven't released a new draft because we made no changes, and no changes are accepted at this juncture. This is just a note that will be removed when we do our final submission. The pass version of the ISO document is functionally identical to OpenChain 2. It's called OpenChain 2.1 because, and I'll show you, the formatting of an ISO standard is a little different to the way we formatted the existing document. It's not hugely different, but the way it reads is slightly different in the formatting and the section numbering and so on. None of the meaning has changed. That's all. So all of the companies which are OpenChain 2 conformant will be ISO conformant. And we encourage companies, actually right now, to work on OpenChain 2 conformance so that they will be ISO conformant in the future. I wanted to check if everyone on the call knows how to find the ISO documents and if you have any questions. So the short version is all of the documentation is available on the wiki, and there's a short link to the ISO draft here I wanted to make sure that's clear and no one had any questions.
This is Imada from Hitachi. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can, Imada-san. Good
Okay,
morning.
thank you. Good morning. I have a question about, just from a curiosity, but the number of ISO standard of our specification, like ISO 9001, or
Yes.
who assigns the number and what will be? Do you know what number will get for our specification?
So at this moment, we don't know what number. We should know the number, I think, within the next month. What will happen is ISO have our submission information. They will review the submission information and give us an ISO number. So the ISO organization will give us the number. That will be probably the next stage of the paperwork review. So we should have the number very soon. The precise timescale we don't know. Here is how it happens.
Okay, thank you. I understand.
You are welcome. So here's the process. We have just finished the final part of the ISO documentation. The final documentation will go to Joint Technical Committee 1, JTC 1 at ISO. And because this is a fast-track submission, they will just read it and perhaps provide a few comments. Their job is not to edit it. Once they have the documentation, once they provide a few comments, we should have the draft ISO number. And within a few weeks after that, we should have a formal ISO release. So that's the short version. I'm hopeful we'll be able to have that ISO number for you within the next month or so. All right. Any further questions? If there are no further questions, we're on to the any other business. If anyone has any comments or other items they'd like to review, now is the time.
Yes, sir.
Hi, Essie.
Hey, regarding the local workgroup logo,
Yes.
we have discussed this stuff, and we think currently, as you may know, most of the Taiwanese company just don't know what is OpenChain.
Yes.
In our thoughts, we want to get the companies to know the OpenChain logo first, and then logo afterwards. So we think the local workgroup logo might be conducted in Q4, I think. Not for now.
Okay. For the logo material and everything like that, I have some good news. I'll just open up our OpenChain project main page. I mentioned we reorganized the repositories and reference material has a lot. There is a repository image assets. So OpenChain project image assets. And this is an exciting place because here you can find all of our image assets. Our German logo in editable format, our, for example, penguin images in editable format. These penguin images are something we've used before. Here's an example. This is a little school teacher penguin helping people learn about OpenChain. These images are in editable formats like SVG for the penguins. The German workgroup logo, I'm afraid, is PXD. That's Pixelmator, a Mac program. The general project logo, just opening it up, the Panettone, is in AI format, Adobe Illustrator, and SVG. Anyway, long story short, OpenChain project, image assets, you can find a lot of the logo material, from the official logo to the conformance badges to the little penguins. and all of it is editable. So you can take this material and you can remix it for your local groups. You can also take, for instance, our project logo and put it on material. So in Taiwan, if you make a short Taiwanese-focused OpenChain slide or handout, you can take the logo in black, white, Pantone formats without text, long versions, and you can put it on that material. I hope this can help local projects, local work groups create material, and meanwhile, I will also be trying to create more material to promote OpenChain. I understand we need to educate a lot of companies.
Understood. So the license of the logo is CC0, right?
Yes, it is. And now the logo is, some of it is a trademark. So under official and project logo, the OpenChain main logo, ooh, wow, that is way too big on the preview. I'll just go to the website. All right. So the OpenChain main logo, like on the top left of this page, like you can see on these slides. Just opening this up. This OpenChain logo is a trademark. So people can take the image material, it's CC0, do anything you want with it. Just be aware that the main project logo is a trademark, so it should only be used to talk about the project. People couldn't take it and do something else with it. For example, I'll just give an example. Let's invent a company name. Crazy Company. Crazy Company couldn't take our OpenChain logo and say Crazy Companies, OpenChain, or something like that. So we protect our trademark. We say the trademark should only be referring to the project. It's a very simple rule, same as the rest of Linux Foundation. But yeah, all of the images are public domain. Take them, do anything with them, and you can always use our project logo to talk about the project. No limit, no issue with that. Just as an example, if I go into the image assets again. So the logo is a trademark. It can only talk about our project. Other stuff is not a trademark, like the penguin images. Do what you want. You can use them for any purpose. We use them for OpenChain. They were created for OpenChain, but literally anyone can use them for anything. We don't mind. They're our mascot, though. We're affectionate to them, but yeah. The project logo is a trademark, but you can always use it to talk about the project. Everything else, it's just available as CC0. Great question, SC. Great question.
Yeah, thank you for your explanation.
You're welcome. What I'll do is under image assets on the README, I'll make it a lot clearer how people can use this stuff. In fact, I'll do that right after this call. All right. Any further questions?
Shen-san?
Yeah.
Yeah, this is Fukuchi. And regarding the planning subgroup, we will hold the next meeting on the day after tomorrow, 19th March. And I will let you know the time and we will hold on Uber conference.
Excellent. So the 19th is a good day.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the time is 3 o'clock.
Let me check, because OpenChain Korea Work Group have a meeting on 19 as well. Okay.
The same time slot.
They're at
3 o'clock. Yeah.
All right. So they're at 2 p.m. And you want to be at 3 p.m. I think they might still be running at 3 p.m. So it's okay.
So,
I have a solution. I can give you another Uber conference dial-in room.
Oh, thank you.
No problem. I will organize that for you today. I will send you the details a little later today. Haha. I know it's inconvenient in some ways, but it's also great that our conference room is getting busy enough that people want the same time. Okay, I will send you an updated URL, so a little different from Uber Conference OpenChain project, but you can all dial in with that new URL. That will come to you later today.
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome. All right, any further business? If not, thank you all, and I look forward to talking again soon. Take care, everyone.